So I will go ahead and put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you, that's carried. Now, before I move on to the next thing, this is just for information only. I've just read or been sent that Green MP Afiso Collins has died after he's doing a charity run event in Auckland. So this is very sad news indeed, but I just thought I'd share that with everyone out there. I think it was very sad. 49. Ooh. Okay, so now we'll move on to item number 6. Committee. Yep. Okay, so Megan, please. 49. Ooh.
Yeah, that's young, isn't it? He's
Good morning. I'm going to take the paper as read, but just as a really brief introduction, during the requested portfolio review late last year, there was identified in some of the respondents the request for a more extensive or a review of the committee structure, and so that was requested at a council meeting late last year, and this paper addresses that review, but I'm open to any questions.
Is it?
Sorry?
Is that it?
Well, I could go into it if you
Okay,
want.
no, that's fine.
But-
Have we got Councillor Templeton?
And also I've got Matt Bolt here to answer any questions of the statistical nature.
No, we've got some questions. Councillor Templeton, please.
So thank you. So yeah, there was one asked yesterday. So the report talks about the fact that some of the committees in the previous term sometimes had as low as 50% decision-making papers, the rest were information papers, maybe 62% for urban development, for example. So those information papers were sort of governance oversight papers as opposed to project-related, is that right?
Some of them,
Yeah.
probably, but not necessarily all of them. But Matt, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so just a quick summary. In terms of the reduction in numbers, part of that is down to some work around consolidation of reports. An example being that included the community board reports to council, which used to be individual per board, which has been consolidated down into one. Some of the frequency of the reports under the old structure, the reporting was more frequent. So what we've seen is reporting that used to be monthly or bi-monthly becoming quarterly or 6 monthly. So that's also contributed to the reduction in the numbers.
And so how many, what's the proportion of sort of decision-making reports versus information reports to council this term?
This term?
Yeah.
Just a moment. So for the last term, the proportion was 25% information reports. This term it's 13%, and decision making is around the same, around 50% for both.
Yeah. Okay. And the papers that we've been talking about getting those regular 6-monthly information updates from operational service delivery units. When can we start expecting those, and do we know the broad range of those? So they've been asked for since the beginning. I mean, we've had a couple sort of waters, for example, but since the beginning of last year, and I'm just wondering, we haven't had oversight of, for example, libraries or parks or any of those kind of ones yet this term.
So we are working at the moment on doing up a consistent template for use, and also doing a kind of a roster for those coming through, but I gather it shouldn't be difficult to start getting them through, but I hadn't been aware of the request at the beginning of the term, and I don't know where that's sat, sorry, so apologies for that. But so this recommendation, this report, helps address some of those to start getting them to start coming through.
Yeah. And will those reports cover both the work that has been happening but also the forward work program?
Well, under this proposal, the interim chief executive at the moment will be doing a forward work program at the council level, and so, but also the update reports, I think realistically expect might have a part of a forward look as well, but that is something that we are working through at the moment with a template.
Yeah. So there's a difference between getting a forward work program for all of council, so all of the reports and things that are coming up, which would be really useful. But also, for example, I have, in previous terms, we've had workshops or reports that have looked at upcoming work that the Three Waters unit would be doing to repair pipes, or that Transport will be doing on the road renewals, those kind of things. And I don't recall seeing that kind of work this term.
Have I captioned it? Finance reporting? No, I don't know. Okay, no, I'm not sure in the detail of that, but through the chief executive, well, I'm just
Are you
wondering
through me, or do you want me to answer?
well, I'm about to say something that I don't know if you're going to raise your eyebrows.
Go ahead, go ahead. I'll throw something at you if I don't like it.
But I couldn't see why there couldn't be some form of forward work view in those updates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I just, I'll leave it for debate.
Thank you. So I have been told that Councillor McDonald is happy to move it and Councillor Cottett's happy to second it. Question from Councillor Henslow.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm noting your report at 3.3, you're referencing that there was strong support for a review of the structure, came from a small subset of those who gave feedback. I'd like to know really just how many people gave feedback here? Are they councillors? Are they other elected members? Are they staff? What are we talking about?
I'm going to have to look to Boyd to answer that, sorry.
Councillor Henstock, the report around the portfolio review looked at existing portfolio holders and it looked at staff that work with those portfolio holders directly.
Okay. Doesn't really give us much indication. Are we talking about 5 people, 10 people?
Look, at the time there were 4 people that held 5 portfolios. Each of those had at least one staff member that was working with them, plus some ancillary staff. So I could estimate, Councillor, somewhere between 12 to 20, but I cannot give you an exact figure without the information in front of me.
That's okay. Small subset. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Hey, thank you, Megan and Matt, for this. It's a bloody good report, and I think it articulates it really well. It was probably along Sarah's theme, which I think would be quite useful for everyone, is that forward work program. I'm just thinking about other boards and things like that. Normally you do have it laid out for the year, so that actually everyone knows at what month the updates from the different departments are scheduled on that, and if we could just have that attached to each agenda.
We haven't solidified that roster, so that's something that we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, so I guess it's just to express if we can do, I mean, I know there's been heaps happening, but if I think that would give the public a lot more visibility over when those touch points are for them to come in, and now we're not obviously doing the briefings in private, actually watching them in a council meeting will be really helpful. So could we make that a bit of a priority to get that work program, and again, like I say, if we have it attached, maybe even in the agendas after the strategic priorities, so that everyone can see it, that would be really useful. Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
Any more questions? We're going to...
No, I'm just saying that I'd sent through an amendment that you might want to incorporate that just actually asks for, it says, agree to receive regular 6-monthly information update report from operational service delivery units, including for the forward work program for the units.
Including the what, sorry?
Including the forward work programs for the units.
Okay, Councillor Don...
People are happy including that in the wording, Sam and
Change it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Donovan, please.
Just a point of clarification. With the portfolio holders, when are the reports coming to council for that? Is that every 6 months? Because I think there have been some portfolios that we haven't had an update
So
from?
as part of this work that we're working on, Councillor Donovan, we are looking at putting together a schedule for those to allow or remind portfolio holders to submit a report to Council as per the terms of reference that were adopted by Council in November last year.
And can you just remind me when we set up some of the original portfolios? Because it's been...
I understand they were established at the end of 2022. I cannot remember the exact meeting date.
Okay. Right, well, shall we fire into debate, please? Who would like to go first? Councillor Henstock?
Well, thanks for that. I've got two primary concerns with the reintroduction of the committees, and the first is about duplication and inefficiency. And we've only just been talking about efficiencies and duplications in the previous agenda item. So I think that inherent in the return to the committee structure is increased resourcing and cost and duplication, and it's going to have an adverse effect on the current staff workloads, really. I note the alarming stats in para 5.11.1 and 5.11.2 of the staff report. So returning to the committee structure just really doesn't make much sense in that regard alone. The other issue for me is about the risk of blurring the lines between operations and governance. I think it's reasonably apparent that we have some councillors that like to dive right down into some of the operational issues. And I think that the committee structure actually provides an avenue for this to occur, perhaps more readily, and I'm not convinced that that's good governance practice. I see that there's other avenues for increased governance with the regular reports. Thanks for raising that, Sarah and Sam, and the forward work programs, and I would encourage this together with the regular updates from the service delivery units. I'm likely to support this, but I'm a first-term councillor, so I only know the system that we're currently operating under. So in the debate today, I'd really like to hear from some of our councillors from the previous term who have experienced the old system, because I think that would be valuable information for those of us who haven't heard it. My parting comment is that if we are wanting to attract high calibre people to run for election to council, we've already spoken about death by PowerPoint today, and I think that death by committee is really not the way to go about that either. Thanks.
Any Councillor Templeton?
Thanks. So this is my third term on council, and this is the third different structure that I've had. They've varied. My first term we had smaller committees with limited delegations then reporting through to council, and there was duplication, which is why the following term committees of the whole were set up, and they just basically replaced council meetings, but it meant that someone different was in charge of doing the agenda setting and making sure that the forward work program and all of those kind of things were being dealt with by those committees. In this term, we have no standing committees for the major sections, transport, community, those kind of things. I don't know of another council around the country that doesn't have standing committees on these issues. When Wellington tried it last term, they had a governance review partway through, which talked about real concerns about the portfolio system, the lack of committees, the way that some things didn't have proper oversight and some had too much detail. I don't think there's a perfect way to do it, but I am really concerned currently at the lack of governance oversight we have over some of our core council functions. I am concerned that I don't know how much of our water network needs replacing in the next 10 years for us to reduce our leakage rate, and at 5 or 2 year intervals. I'm concerned that I don't know how much of our road renewal program we could or couldn't ramp up for various reasons, how much we're covering every year. All of those things should be core governance that we should be delving into as a council, not at that operational level, but as a high level view of what's happening in our council. It's starting to feel like all we're getting is the reports based off the budgets we set. Here's a program, here's a project, here's what we're doing about it, sign it off or not, or whatever, whether sign it off or not. But we're not getting that that real oversight and depth and insight into the organisation that I think that we need as governors, and that concerns me. And so I'll be voting against number 1 there. Really want those reports. I've been asking them for a long time, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
I'm going to support the moved resolution, because while I think that in an ideal world a committee structure probably is the best structure, I don't think we've done a committee structure well in the past. I think that the proposal in terms of how committees would work looks good. I think that the committee structures can lead to a problem of relitigating issues that I think can be unhelpful, but the key to mitigating that is to make sure those committees are well formed and representative of council, and that's how you mitigate the relitigation issue. So while I like the alternative structure proposed in this report, I think that given we're a year in, and given that we're going to receive 6 monthly reports from all the operational units, I think that actually the system is pretty good, considering we wouldn't have to depart and radically change. But in the future, particularly in the next term, I would like to see a committee structure reinstated and a committee structure done well, because I don't think we've done it, and I think it can work really good when it's done well.
Okay, so Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of terms as well, and at council. So Vic have seen both, and the old saying, "Boiling the cabbage twice," comes to mind with committees, because what would happen is you'd get all this great information at a committee level, and all these fantastic questions would be asked, and then you'd go to council level and get a repeat of the exact same thing, because usually the important questions are the same questions, and you've got a different set of council. So you've got the staff answering all the same questions twice, and you're going through the same PowerPoint presentation, which can be good for people of different abilities. Some people absorb PowerPoint and audible words better than reading, Tyrone, but in an inclusive society, we have both. And Sarah made a point around that before, and that is important. And she comes from a teaching background, so she could probably explain to everyone how different people learn different ways, and we're all different. So, but the committee thing, I like the structure we've currently got. I think it is working well. The 6 monthly reports, I've heard Sarah repeat a couple of times around the water pipes. I can't wait for the state of our water. To hear that 6 monthly going forward, I think is really good. And the same with the state of our roads, hearing that 6 monthly, so we can keep an eye on the ball, because the biggest complaints this council gets every year is around the state of our roads. So the 6 monthly, giving us the state of the roads and the state of the water pipes, will be really good. A couple of others, state of the rubbish would be nice. And state of our waterways would be the key ones for me. Our core business, essentially, and getting those, and given that all the information is now going to be in public, even better. So a double whammy. Thank you to you, Yanni, for that as well. So I look forward to us going forward on this without boiling the cabbage twice.
Councillor Harrison Hunt, please, and then Councillor Goff. Oh, no, you're all happy? Councillor Goff, please.
I feel I should probably speak to this. I've been around for a while, and it was asked, for people's perspectives on this. So all I can give you is just my genuine observations on the structures. But this is my 5th term, so I've seen lots of different councillors, lots of different mayors, lots of different structures. Prior to this term, I've seen committees. Prior to this term, I've seen no committees. I've seen committees on the whole, and all variations in between. The whole 9 yards. But in my honest opinion, take it with a grain of salt if you want, but I genuinely believe the structure that we've got has struck the balance best. There's no other reason for me to say that other than it's just how I felt that it's worked. I haven't felt that there's been any lack of public participation. I don't believe that decisions have been rushed. The previous paper on raising the level of transparency around briefings and workshops, I think that's a really good initiative. I didn't speak to it, but I'm supportive of it, and I think that can be incorporated into the structure that we presently have. I think there is a space for to get into the weeds, which is really what committees do, and that's for audit and risk and health and safety. But ultimately, I think our role is two-pronged. It's a representation role and it's a governance role. So when you're in your community, we want you to represent and represent well. And when you're in here, we want you to govern and to govern well. And by design, committees really do blur that line between governance and management. And when this is not meant in a disrespectful way towards elected members, but quite often when people don't have a corporate governance background, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that line is really easy to blur, and it's frustrating for staff, and it doesn't lead to great outcomes. And one anecdote where I think it was, we got to the right outcome, but just the process was, pretty appalling in hindsight, and that was the rebuild of the Bishopdale Library and Community Centre, where we went through public workshops, deep engagement at a community level through our community board. The community board made a recommendation that then went to a council committee. So the community and the locals who knew this area well, knew the community well, made a recommendation. It then went to a council committee. I think I was the only member of the community board that was actually on that committee. So, and then there wasn't an ability for the community to come in there. So then a recommendation was made on a recommendation that went to council to make a decision. So a decision made on two recommendations. Aaron speaks of boiling the cabbage twice, and it doesn't taste good. So I think we've got a pretty good structure now, and in my view, it's the best that we've got. There's always room for improvement, but it's working, and that's my belief. So happy to support the recommendations.
Okay.
And take on board an old man's views on all of this. So I think it works.
I'm surprised you had any cabbage left. Councillor Johansson.
Oh, thank you. I've been running for a little while as well, and I've seen, and when I was on community board, I've seen, attempt to have sort of portfolios as well. But I think for me, I still fundamentally believe in the value of committees. That hasn't changed over my course of observation for the several terms that I've been on council. I like committees because I think having a chair and a deputy chair that can look at the work programs, can look at the information, and can take leadership around those things is really critical. And also I like the idea that it also shares the work program around a number of councillors. So the other thing that's I think important to observe about committees is it also gives, and for all the examples that people might give about boiling the cabbage twice, there have been some really beneficial ways in which committees have dealt with quite difficult issues. And the town hall probably comes to my mind as a building that may not have been saved if it wasn't for having a committee doing the work beforehand, before it came to the full council. So for every example you can give of maybe things that you feel are a bit frustrating that they've been relitigated twice, there's also a number of examples of things that have actually been hugely important to our city that may not have happened if it wasn't for having a committee structure that could enable a lot of work and thinking and recommendations to go that the public can see. So that's the other really important thing about committees, is it does give the community and the public more than just a couple of days to know that something's on the council agenda and that it's going to be discussed and what the likely recommendations may be. So, it's not a criticism of the current process, although I think there are improvements that under the recommendations that are being put forward under 2 and 3 I think are important. But my preference has been to have a committee structure. One of the things that I find really hard to explain to the community in my area that I represent at a governance level is what's happening with the plan changes to address the industrial residential interface. I think if we had a committee where people could go, raise those concerns, they would feel a lot more comfortable than just coming to a full council, which a number of them have come in the past, and feeling like there's been no progress. Now, I know there's other mechanisms to try and advance those things, but for the community not to understand why things are not being done that we've agreed to, and not to have a committee chair or a deputy to go to, I think is a bit of a weakness in our current system. But so I'll not be supporting one, but I will support the other recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McDonald.
Thanks. Look, very briefly, I think these are always a good discussion, and it does show the different views around how councils, I guess, could potentially operate. I think fundamentally it comes back to the fact that we've set a structure at the beginning of this term, and the next point to change that is at the next election under that new structure, however that may look. I think the points have been really well canvassed throughout this entire thing. The only thing I would say is that in practice last term, we would literally convene meetings of the whole or committees of the whole for one paper. So we would literally, all the time and all the effort that went into the secretariat having to pull everything together for literally sometimes a half an hour meeting, when I think about it, maybe 45 minutes. And I kind of think actually the points that have been raised are really valid, but if there are genuinely papers that people feel we are not getting, then go and talk to the Mayor, go and talk to Boyd, go and talk to Mary or Pauline, or if it's finance, come and talk to Malarai, and we'll make sure that you're getting that oversight that you need. I think it's really important people have visibility, but actually if we don't know what you don't, if we don't know, I guess, what you want to see, or if there are concerns you have and they're not raised with us, we can't address that. But I come back to that fundamental point last term, and back to Vic's point about asking how it played out. We would genuinely convene on a Wednesday for probably 45 minutes for some committees to receive a report. So in practice, it didn't really work. And I just think actually halfway through now, we should kind of let this play out. And obviously just to thank Megan and Matt and the team for pulling together a really good report that I think explains, the reason this works now, but actually the improvements that can be made. So it's good we've looked at it, but I think we've landed in a place where with some enhancements, we can continue to effectively govern for the city. Noting that, as James said, we've got two hats. We've got a representative hat, so the local issues Yanni raised, there's nothing to stop anyone going and talking to him about that. But when you're sitting around the table, you're taking that city-wide view as well.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison-Hunt, please. You there, Tyler? Did he?
Yeah, I thought Sam was finishing, but sorry, there's something going on here. Can you hear me okay?
Roger.
Great. I just wanted to quickly note that as a portfolio holder, one of the three that were actually for the new committee structure that, oh my gosh, there's something going on here. Apologies. That I am pro for some of the committees, and I'd love to see what that looks like, but I want to recognise Sam's points that it's a little bit late in the piece to be able to look at and to reviewing that. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like in the next term, regardless of what happens. As a portfolio holder, you get a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, not as much oversight over the big things. It's great turning up to an event. It's great actually getting a canvas on what's on the ground, but the big stuff still remain to be seen. There are some considerable capital projects, for example, such as the Multicultural Centre, which I've been working with the staff on, which is really great being able to be on that one-to-one basis. But I have to re-inform the rest of the council through my report. So again, it is also doubling up, but it's doubling up through an individual instead of through a group. So there are pros and cons to both. I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like, but I will be keen to see what the committee structure looks like. So I'll be potentially voting against, not supporting one, but keen to support 2, 3, and 4. Hilda.
Thank you, buddy. Councillor Coker.
Thanks. I hadn't really thought about what I was going to vote for till just now, because I wanted to listen to everybody. I understand about how committees and smaller committees can get people to councillors to delve deeper into issues. And I also understand the idea of relitigating things when it comes to council, which seems completely pointless. So I actually quite liked committees of the whole last term because we all sat around the table and we did see a lot more information than what we've been receiving. The solution, obviously, to having committees which only have one report is to have them less frequently, and that would solve that issue. And I also quite liked the ability to be a chair or deputy chair for quite a lot of members. I thought it was good for growth, especially if you hadn't been on a community board before or hadn't been a chair. It gives you opportunity you don't normally have to strengthen your governance skills, which I think is useful for all of us. So I also feel this term that portfolios, and no offence, but I think they don't work. I think they are a waste of time. I feel I have a lot less connection with youth and stuff to do with climate change. I really feel like there's there's a lot less oversight of those things. I have almost no connection to youth groups anymore because I was seeing them and maybe I should be making more of an effort. Obviously I should, but it actually is very helpful to have them coming in here to meet with us. I really liked that, and so I've actually decided I'm going to not support number 1, even though I quite enjoy these meetings and like the way they work as well. But I do think the committee structure is just slightly better, and it could be tweaked to improve it from last term. So that's where I'm sitting.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Nothing grinds my gears more than boiling the cabbage twice. I did it in 2018. It put me out for weeks. I appreciate more experienced members giving their perspective, because as new members it's tricky for us to know what does work better, whether the committees were working, whether they could have worked better. So it's going to take a bit to really get a good idea. As for portfolios not working, I'm going to do my best to change your minds on that, Councillor Coker, because I tell you what, I've got a doozy of a report coming your way in a few months' time. So thanks everyone for contributing. It's, consider it done.
Councillor Scandrett and then Councillor Cotter.
Yeah. Thank you. As being a dyslexic, the one really good thing about the previous one was actually when you debated something twice, I only had to read it once, so it's bloody fantastic. And PowerPoints are good because you've got pictures. You're true. Yeah, the cartoon's always good. So, yeah. But the one thing that we got to remember is that we will never reach perfection. The other thing that we're doing is, Councillor Templer mentioned, we've tried a number of different variants. So the one thing that we can count on is knowledge. So if I am fortunate enough to be here after the next election, I think it would be good to sit down with hopefully everyone or whoever's here and really discuss our knowledge, what we've learnt from the last few sessions, with how we set up in the future and what works and what doesn't. And I know that it's the Mayor's prerogative, and that's absolutely it's fine. But I think if we concentrate on the knowledge and the learnings, both positive and negative, and work forward for the betterment of the ratepayers, that is a good thing. So let's keep some positive about how we go forward. And I'm going to be supporting this because we've agreed on a process. It's not perfect, but we should always aim for the better and the good, and that's what we should be aiming for as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cotter.
Oh yeah, look, I just wanted to speak in support of the portfolios. I think that they're just still bedding in. I think that they're really good. I'm really pleased to see what's coming out of the portfolios. There's room there for creativity and positive stuff to come out of it, to be built out of it, rather than where we tend to sit here and respond to reports. And I think that's a really good thing to be fostering there. This process that we've got now is actually relatively new, and I think it would be wrong to disrupt it now at this point. We do have to think about the pressure that committees do put on staff. But I just want to endorse what Councillor McClellan said too, that I think committees have their place. We have a finance committee. There could be room for another one. But we've got to do that right, and I think they do need delegation, otherwise you do end up in the kitchen for too long. I will be supporting this today because this is not the right time to change horses and disrupt the proceedings by building a whole new program. The time to address this is at the beginning of a new electoral term. So for today I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Donovan.
Yeah, it's been good to hear the different perspectives. I've been here for just over 2 years, so I've had a pretty much equal amount of time with both systems. When I came to council, I didn't have experience with the community board, so I must admit it was quite a lot to learn, and I always appreciated the support and help of my colleagues in terms of guiding me through the process. But probably what was most useful was actually the committees of the whole, because actually through that process you were able to participate in decision making around some of the most substantial stuff around council. So one of the committees, of course, was the Transport and Infrastructure Environment Committee, and I think the fact that we don't have committees that look at some of those significant things and portfolios that are looking at really, in my view, important things that could also be looked at and maybe are more appropriate to be looked at through a portfolio, means that we're sort of maybe spending time on things that are important but aren't core council business. So my view would be that we would have some combination of both. I do think there is space for committees of the whole. Portfolios play a role, and I commend those that have taken them on. It's a huge amount of work for one person. I think the challenge is that one person is then required to cover off a lot of work, use a lot of staff time, and it's self-guided, so there'll be differing reporting requirements for each of those portfolios. So perhaps there isn't as much oversight as a council as a whole when we don't hear back from some of those portfolios. So I won't be supporting one, but I will be supporting the others.
Thank you, Dave. So I think we've done very well. I will put this motion, and knowing that some will vote against number one, and that will be recorded. So I will put the motion for the whole lot at the moment, and if anyone wants to vote against one, please let Sam know. So all those in favour? Against? Right.
So
That's carried. So
Can I,
hands up for one.
Yes, thank you. If you would like your votes recorded against recommendation one, please just hands up high, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, now we're going to take, we've got a couple of amendments come in for number 7, the better off funding. We're going to take 15 minutes just to get our head round that. So we'll have a cup of tea and then we'll be back. Thank you.